Welcome to this edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Today's conversation will be about Steven Spielberg's War Horse. War Horse is adapted from a children's novel and then later a stage play and brought to the screen by Steven Spielberg. It encompasses the story of Joey, a horse that we see from birth to his later years. First with his interaction by the boy who found him, Albert Narracod, and his travails on his family's farm and trying to make it through until he's sold to the English army, where we then see his life continue throughout World War I. It is a movie that encompasses several different characters through different vignettes, with Joey and to a lesser extent Albert being the main focuses of the narrative. I think one of the good things about War Horse is just the subject matter. Bringing World War I, the Great War, an often forgotten war on cinema.
Well, especially just because the U.S. did not have a large part.
Yeah, especially in American cinema, into focus. It kind of, I don't know if it justifies, no war necessarily can be justified, but it shows that there were various men and women and horses who were young, who gave their lives and made the ultimate sacrifice. And for somebody maybe 100 years later just to pick up a book or to go on a website and look at World War I is an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I think most people knew what World War I was, but especially they didn't know how horses were treated and used during this war. Like, they probably didn't even know horses were even near the battlefield at all.
Right. That's a great point. It actually says the average horse would only last 40 days.
Exactly. Yeah.
From getting on the field to when he is obviously dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can see that evolution throughout this movie. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Steven Spielberg is an American classic. There's no question, no doubting that. So I want to ask my co-host once again. Spielberg uses child actors, something he's done in the past, something he might do in the future.
Yeah.
How effective are the child actors and Spielberg's ability to use them to present a story?
Well, yeah, Spielberg is always effective using child actors, and he recognizes that. And that's probably how it was in the original story too, but he recognized how important it is for you to relate to a child, because if you relate to a child, then you really care about the horse.
Right.
Which is the main character. Who's the main character of the story? Joey, right?
Right, absolutely. In this case, we have Albert, the young English boy. We have Emily, the sick French or Belgian girl.
It's French.
French girl who lives with her grandpa, and then the German boys who enlist but are obviously under the age, and then have second thoughts. So we see vignettes or storylines with them with Joey the horse, and I think particularly Emily, the French girl, does a great job of just creating that spark. The spark that only a child can have with an animal. That connection that's so unfiltered but so real, and so kind of just really pops off the screen.
Oh yeah, huh? I mean, nothing more I can add to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now we said Joey, and then I'm forgetting the other horse that he worked with when he was with the German artillery unit, the Black Horse.
Which is all we can remember right now. So.
Right. Absolutely, but how about the horse as a cinematic animal? There's been cases in the past, National Velvet with Liz Taylor, Robert Redford just a couple of years ago with Horse Whisperer.
It was more like 15 years.
15 years ago.
Okay, 1989. So
okay.
13.
Can you speak to the horse as a cinematic animal?
I mean, horses. Well, obviously, there's always dogs, right? Dogs are always popular culture, man's best friend.
Yeah.
But then, horses are always going to be part of movies because it's just it's the closest you're gonna get to. It sure can be considered a utilitarian animal, but it also more so than other animals like a cow.
Right.
You
Transportation.
yeah.
It has use. Yeah.
Yeah, but it also has people also have an emotional attachment to their horses, and that's what at the core what this movie is about.
Right, that's a great point my co-host makes, that these are majestic animals, but they've always been linked to humans, right?
Yes.
There's numerous horse scenes in movies. Like, I think one of the most, I don't know, shocking or emotional scenes in the first Godfather film was the scene with the horse head. So they have this impact. They're majestic. They're the sport of kings has horses. They just have such a lineage to man, and it's a great animal for cinema.
Yes.
Now, going with that, what we think is so emotional is that there's obviously reports and little tidbits that grown men, one of the stern, action-loving guys, are crying in this film because of the pain the horse suffers. Yes. Do you think that's a believable statement, or is that being played up too much?
I think it is believable because, well, the grown men you see crying are usually, like, the younger men, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this is a time when a lot of these boys came straight off the farm, right?
Right.
And when you're on a farm, if you have a horse is considered a friend to you, right? Which is what you see at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, friendship, and I think even audiences, when they just reported that men would be crying while they were watching this film, they connected with the simple friendship. It's very simple, pure, in many senses. Let's look at some of the artists that obviously always help Spielberg, and I want to particularly point on Kaminsky and his cinematography. There's some beautifully shot vantages in the English countryside, in Battle Europe, the lines in France, and into Switzerland or Belgium, that scenery, and then just the point of view of using the horses, landscapes, some really good cinematic shots.
Yeah, very beautiful film. Definitely something if you can experience it in a full theater setting, it'll be just astonishing. Yeah.
And John Williams, longtime collaborator of Steven Spielberg, legendary composer, comes back and really creates, I think, more of an evergreen, timeless kind of composition. The strings play up. We know when Joey is on the screen. We know Albert's emotions. It's a really classic Hollywood kind of score.
Yeah. I mean, the score, if a score should always benefit the movie, and it definitely does that here.
Right. Now, I personally haven't seen the stage play. I don't think my co-host has either.
No, I have not.
But do you think it works well as a film, and more so than a stage play, or do you think the stage play and a film, they work equally as well? If you...
Yeah, you could do the way this, because it does seem to be, just for judging on the movie alone, it does seem to be a very direct adaptation from the stage play. Because you can see this movie can be split up into 3 or 4 different clear acts. Like how pretty much Joey's journey, right?
Right.
You see his early life. You see his life with the British older, with the French girl, or the German boys before that.
Right.
And so on, and all the way back to the ending of this movie.
Right. Okay, we're nearing the end of this edition of Inside the Academy Studio, and like always, we like to finish with questions. So I ask, what was your favorite moment in Warhorse? And my favorite moment easily was Emily, the little girl, when she tried to train Joey to jump over those rails, and he would always find a way out and always go either around it. It was just a really fun, cute movie in the middle of 2 more tense parts or acts of the film.
Yes. Like my favorite would be probably what I like to call the Apollo 13 scene. So when Joey is reunited with Albert, the first boy
Right.
who owns him, along with his family.
Yeah.
It's like you knew the scene was coming, but because you can create an emotional attachment to this horse,
Right.
it still does hit you that way.
Right.
And I think Spielberg does succeed on that mark.
Least favorite moment. I think my least favorite moment is probably in the beginning part of the film. I do think the film hits more of its stride when Joey does go to war. I think my least favorite would be David Thewlis.
Lupin.
David Thewlis' character as the landowner coming in to see Albert Narracott, his mother, his father, Ted Narracott, and it's a scene or it's a thing that, eventually we get Joey plowing the field, but it's too long, I feel, and the movie really doesn't really hit its stride until after that stuff is resolved.
I have to say my least favorite is towards the end. I mean, when the grandfather of the Emily character comes to reclaim the horse.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little too many holes in that story.
It seemed too perfect that he came.
Yeah, it seemed because especially he just happened to know that the auction was happening and he was
right,
and he was willing to spend all his money and then eventually he spends it and then eventually he does just give it back to Albert.
Things tied up maybe too cleanly.
Yeah,
right. As we always do, we like to do word association. So when we think Warhorse, what word do you associate with it?
No, barbed wire. There we go. Barbed wire.
Barbed wire.
That's 2 words, but it's one thing.
Because of the scene.
Yeah, the scene.
Yeah.
Which is a good scene back and forth between the German enemy and the British soldier.
And if you use the 1 word, 2 word thing, I can use show jumping. Obviously my favorite scene, and it's something that, a horse we see in a traditional manner as a show jumper. Obviously this time it's a war horse, so a little play on that. So the words we think of when we think warhorse are barbed wire and show jumping. That is our edition of Inside the Academy Studio.
Thank you.